Hi everyone, my name is Arwen. Today Louis and I will make a presentation about second language learning. When it comes to learning a second language, people are always wondering that whether to learn a similar language which is similar to one's mother tongue, or to learn a completely different one, like Chinese and English. So we are taking the side of learning a different one. Here's our outline. I will first introduce what is a different language and give some advantages of learning a new skill. Then Louis will focus on research about different languages have different impacts on brain and then come to the conclusion part. So, what is a different language? I will give the example of Chinese and English. So, the most apparent difference is the written appearance of the language. We can see the example of I and water. They look really different in Chinese and English. Chinese uses characters while English words use the alphabet, which allows the speaker to sound out the word because it is a phonetic language. Luckily, for people who want to learn Chinese, Pinyin would help a lot by providing a phonetic representation of Chinese characters. The second difference is English uses pronouns. English often uses pronouns like she, you, we, which, they, and that to make the long sentences more transparent and without repeats. But in Chinese, sentences are short, so there's no need to use pronouns. And that is why in Chinese, nouns are much more common. And the third difference is English often uses passive voice while Chinese use the active voice. Chinese seldom uses the passive voice and generally use the active voice. For instance, in English, we often say that it is widely believed that, but in Chinese language, it will be expressed as people generally believe that. The first difference is tone of phonology. As we all know, there are 4 tones in Chinese language, and these tones allow Chinese syllables to be pronounced in several ways to emphasize 4 different meanings of the word being spoken. Unlike the English that uses tones to express or stress some emotions, we can see the example below as in that a different tone in Chinese will lead to a complete different meaning in English. May I ask you and may I kiss you? And the fifth is structure, one of the biggest difference in Chinese and English. Chinese is topic prominent, while English is subject prominent. This sounds very complicated, but it is very straightforward. Let's take the sentence, I've already done my homework as an example. In this sentence, I is the subject, but the topic is my homework. The sentence isn't really talk about the speaker, but it is about homework. Chinese is topic prominent, so it often prefers to put the topic first, not the subject. So a speaker might say 作业我已经做完了 in Chinese, that means homework I've already done in English. Then I will talk about some advantages of learning a completely new skill. But we think learning a different language is included in learning a new skill, so we try to expand the topic a little bit because it's really hard for us to find some research study that only focus on language and especially different language. The first advantage is it can change the chemistry of your brain. The white matter in our brain is called myelin, and it helps improve performance on a number of tasks. So the more people practice a new skill, the more dense the myelin in their brain will be, which will help them learn even better. The second advantage is keep you healthy. Learning keeps your mind engaged and body active. It helps you get new knowledge and perspectives on the world around you. It helps you gain new experiences, trains your brain to handle a wide range of challenges and difficulties, and keeps your neural pathways active. So all of these factors combine to keep you healthy. The third advantage is increasing adaptability. So if we really want to learn something like a language, we need to spare a lot of time for it. So the willingness to learn new skill is very important. And this will promote the skill of time management and will increase the confidence and nurtures a growth mindset, which will help us grow as a person and a professional. The fourth advantage is increasing your likability. This means you will be more attractive to employers and draw others to you. If you know a foreign language, you will naturally draw others to you. Knowing something that other people don't know will help you stand out at work. It also helps you gain respect and admiration among your peers, and it can increase your chances of getting hired. The last advantage is the learning speed will increase. By stimulating neurons in the brain, more neural pathways are formed, and electrical impulses travel faster across them as you attempt to process new information. The more pathways that are formed, the faster impulses can travel. Then Lewis will introduce a study that demonstrates the benefits of learning a very different language.
So, one of the reasons why we think that learning a very different language is much more beneficial comparing to learning a similar language is because of the differences of brain development caused by both of these processes. Researchers show that learning two completely different languages involves the training of different parts of the brain. That is to say, if you want to learn a different language, the parts of the brain that are involved in the learning process of the new language is quite different from the parts of the brain that was trained in the learning process of the language you originally gained. For example, in the learning process of a non-tonal language, especially those European root languages such as English, French, and Spanish, most trainings of the brain happen in the left hemisphere, while for the learning process of those tonal languages such as Chinese and Japanese, there will be a lot more to do with the right hemisphere. So if we decide to learn a similar language, then similar parts of the brain will be trained. While if we decide to learn a very different language, then different parts of the brain, which also means that more parts of the brain will be involved in the learning processes. And also since that there were also researchers pointing out that training more parts of the brain is better for brain development in improving plasticity and creating more neural pathways. That is to say, learning a very different language with more parts of the brain being involved is much better for the brain development. Let's again take an example of two language learners. The first is a Chinese and English language learner, while the second is an English and French language learner. And you can see that the learning process of the second one is more restricted on the left hemisphere, since both English and French learning process, they all focus on the left hemisphere with neglecting of the development of the right hemisphere, and this will actually lead to an imbalanced development for the brain. While considering for the first learner, both parts of the brain is trained, since for English that hemisphere is focused on Chinese, the opposite. Then there will be neural pathways both inside the two hemispheres as well as also between the left and right hemisphere. And this creates much more plasticity as there are more neural pathways for the second learner. And also when it comes to the situation of a kid, during his maturity, there is an important period called the critical period of language. And during such period, it is even more important for the kid to learn a very different language, since considering the situation where the kid selected a similar language, then only similar part of the brain is practiced while leaving the other parts that are important for maybe other languages untrained, and also lead to a lower plasticity. This will actually later on have an effect when he passed the critical period. It will be much harder for him to learn a very different language or something new, comparing to the situation if he decided to learn a very different language. So, based on the part of the brain development, we think that learning a different language is much better. And then let's welcome Arwen to introduce some more advantages of learning a different language. So, as conclusion, learning a different language can have a better brain development with the aspect of white matters and also neural pathways that can lead to a better plasticity. This can help the person to gain a faster learning speed for his or her later future life. Also, they can provide a deeper understanding of language, as the differences of the languages can give a more direct feeling of what language actually is. For example, what grammar actually is, and that he or she may be more likely to pay attention to grammar errors of the native language which might once be neglected, and also might help him or her to become an interesting person, as every language has a culture lying behind of it. Knowing a different culture enables him or her to be a better communicator all over the world, and also they can be able to providing a better adaptation to changes, since learning a completely different language is like being exposed to a new environment, and this kind of experience is very likely to help the brain to have a better reaction and also quicker adaptation when later he or she encounters the changes.
Here are our references, and thanks for your watching and listening.